Grandma kicked out of luxury store. Next day, her millionaire son returns with 10 bodyguards. Enjoy the story. Light streamed through the tall glass windows of Bellamy's, the most exclusive boutique in downtown Chicago. Each beam caught the crystals on the chandeliers, scattering prismatic reflections across marble floors, polished to mirror-like perfection. Eleanor Thornton stood at the entrance, her weathered hands clutching her worn leather purse a little tighter. She adjusted, her beige cardigan, meticulously mended at the elbows, over her floral blouse. Her silver hair was swept into a neat bun, a few gentle wisps framing her face, which, despite its 72 years of lines, carried a quiet dignity. Her eyes, warm and amber-colored, widened slightly at the opulence surrounding her. The soft, classical music playing in the background seemed to emphasize how out of place she was in this temple of luxury. The mannequins stood like silent sentinels, draped in fabrics that cost more than Eleanor's monthly pension. She moved cautiously, feeling the stares of impeccably dressed salespeople tracking her movements. Her sensible shoes, polished but visibly worn at the heels, made soft shuffling sounds against the marble. When she reached the center display, she stopped. There it was, the navy blue dress with silver embroidery that reminded her so much of the one Carol had described. Her daughter's birthday was next week, and just once, Eleanor wanted to give her something extraordinary. "May I help you?" The voice was like silk, wrapped around steel. A tall, immaculately styled saleswoman named Vivian approached, her expression a perfect mask of professional disdain. "Yes," Eleanor smiled, grateful for the acknowledgement. "I'm interested in this dress. My daughter's birthday is coming up, and this piece is from our exclusive Parisian collection," Vivian interrupted, looking Eleanor up and down with a practiced eye. "It's priced at $6,000. Eleanor's smile faltered briefly. "I see. It's beautiful craftsmanship. May I touch the fabric?" Vivian's perfectly penciled eyebrow arched. "We typically reserve handling privileges for serious buyers. Perhaps there's something more suitable elsewhere in the city?" From behind the counter, another employee, his name tag read Marcus, smirked visibly. He leaned over to whisper something to a young assistant who was arranging scarves, and both glanced at Eleanor with barely concealed amusement. "I understand." Eleanor's voice remained steady, though her fingers trembled slightly. "But my daughter always loved this shade of blue. I thought perhaps—" "We don't do holds," Vivian said loudly enough for other customers to hear, "and we certainly don't do charity cases. This isn't a thrift store, ma'am." The words hung in the air like daggers. Several well-heeled customers turned to observe the interaction, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to cruel curiosity. Eleanor felt her face flush hot with humiliation, but she straightened her shoulders. "I never asked for charity," she said softly. "Only kindness. Thank you for your time." As she turned to leave, her purse caught on a display table, spilling its contents across the polished floor. Lipstick, an old wallet, reading glasses, and a faded photograph scattered at her feet. Eleanor knelt slowly, her knees protesting to gather her belongings. Only one person moved to help, the young assistant who had been arranging scarves. She quickly knelt beside Eleanor, helping collect the items with a whispered apology. "Alice!" "Back to work," Vivian snapped. "Let's not encourage lingering." Eleanor managed to collect her dignity along with her belongings and walked out into the bright September day. Outside, the wind carried the first hints of autumn, rustling through the trees lining Michigan Avenue. She blinked back tears, not for the dress she couldn't afford, but for the cruel reminder that the world often judged worth by appearance alone. What Eleanor didn't know as she walked away was that someone had witnessed the entire scene through the store's front window. Someone who would not let this slight go unanswered. The next morning dawned clear and crisp over Chicago's skyline. Eleanor sat at her modest kitchen table, sipping tea and reading the newspaper, the previous day's humiliation still a dull ache in her chest. The phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was Carol, her voice bright with its usual energy. "Mum, I can't believe I forgot to tell you. Richard and I are taking you to dinner tonight for your birthday. I know it's not until next week, but he has that conference coming up and—" "That sounds lovely, dear," Eleanor replied, not mentioning that she'd been planning to surprise Carol for her birthday, not the other way around. "Great! We'll pick you up at 6. Oh, and Mom, wear something nice. It's that new place downtown everyone's been talking about." After hanging up, Eleanor opened her closet and surveyed her limited options with a critical eye. The nicest thing she owned was a dark green dress she'd worn to a neighbor's funeral last year. It would have to do. She spent the afternoon pressing it carefully, polishing her one pair of dress shoes and setting her hair in loose curls, the way Carol always said looked nice. As she prepared, Eleanor couldn't help but remember her late husband Walter's words. "It's not the package, but what's inside that counts." He had always made her feel like the most beautiful woman in any room, regardless of what she wore. When he died 11 years ago, he'd left her with memories, love, and very little else. The medical bills had taken most of their savings. At precisely 6 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside her modest brownstone. Eleanor was surprised. Carol and Richard usually drove their sensible sedan. The driver, a young man in a crisp uniform, opened the door with a formal nod. "Mrs. Thornton, your son is waiting." Eleanor blinked in confusion. "I think there's been a mistake. My son is—" "In Chicago as of this morning," came a deep voice from inside the car. A tall figure emerged, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. James Thornton's face broke into the warm smile that had always reminded Eleanor so much of Walter. "James!" Eleanor gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "But you were in Tokyo. You said you couldn't." "Change of plans, Mom." He embraced her gently, the expensive fabric of his suit a stark contrast to her simple dress. "I missed you, and I hear we're celebrating your birthday early." Eleanor's confusion only grew when they arrived not at a restaurant, but at Bellamy's boutique. The store was closed, a private event sign on the door. James guided his bewildered mother toward the entrance, where a young woman in a smart business suit waited. "Mrs. Thornton, welcome back to Bellamy's. I'm Samantha Pierce, the regional manager. We're honored to have you here tonight." Eleanor's heart raced with anxiety. "James, I don't understand. This is where you were treated unforgivably yesterday," James finished, his voice low and firm. "Yes, I know. Alice told me everything." Standing slightly behind Samantha was the young assistant who had helped Eleanor pick up her things. She offered a small smile and a nod. "Please come in," Samantha said, opening the door to reveal a transformed interior. The store was empty of customers. Soft music played, and a small table with champagne and hors d'oeuvres had been set up in the center. "What is all this?" Eleanor whispered, clutching James's arm. "Justice, Mom, but not the kind you're thinking." His eyes, so like her own, held a determined gleam. "You've spent your whole life putting everyone else first. Tonight is about making things right." As they entered, Eleanor noticed with shock that Vivian and Marcus were also present, standing uncomfortably near the back of the store. Their expressions were a mixture of embarrassment and apprehension. "Mrs. Thornton," Vivian began, her voice missing its previous edge, "I want to personally apologize for my behavior yesterday. It was unprofessional and unkind." Before Eleanor could respond, the front door opened again. In walked Carol and Richard, followed by several elderly women Eleanor recognized from the nursing home, where she volunteered 3 days a week. "Mom," Carol hurried forward to embrace her mother. "Happy early birthday. James told us everything." I can't believe you were looking at dresses for me." Eleanor's confusion deepened. "But how did James know? He was in Tokyo, and I never said—" "I wasn't in Tokyo," James admitted. "I was actually flying in to surprise you for your birthday when I decided to stop by your favorite coffee shop. The barista mentioned you'd been talking about visiting Bellamy's to look at a dress for Carol. I thought I'd surprise you there, but when I arrived—" His expression darkened momentarily. "He saw how they treated you," Alice filled in softly, "and he came back this morning." What happened next unfolded like a scene from a movie Eleanor might have watched on her small television on a quiet Sunday afternoon. James, her quiet, studious son, who had left Chicago 15 years ago with nothing but determination and a scholarship, had returned as James Thornton, CEO of Global Innovation Partners, a technology firm with offices in 20 countries. "Your son made quite an impression this morning," Samantha explained, a hint of admiration in her voice. "He arrived with his executive team and made it very clear that Bellamy's had two choices: make this right, or face the consequences of having their treatment of a respected community elder made very public." "James, you didn't," Eleanor gasped. "I did," he replied without apology, "but I also offered a third option, one that benefits everyone." Samantha nodded. "Global Innovation Partners has just become our newest corporate client. They'll be providing wardrobe stipends for all their executives, with an emphasis on community reinvestment." She gestured toward the elderly women from the nursing home. "Starting with providing appropriate attire for job interviews for seniors returning to the workforce." Eleanor's hand went to her heart as understanding dawned. The nursing home had recently started a program helping its more active residents find part-time employment, but many lacked professional attire for interviews. "That's not all," James continued. He nodded to Alice, who disappeared into the back room and returned with a garment bag. "The dress you were admiring yesterday," Alice explained, carefully unzipping the bag to reveal the navy blue dress with silver embroidery. "We'd be honored if you'd accept it as a gift," Samantha said, "though I understand completely if you'd prefer not to." Eleanor looked at the dress, then at her son, her daughter, and finally at Vivian and Marcus, who couldn't quite meet her eyes. "Thank you, but no," she said gently. "That dress was meant for Carol, and while it's beautiful, I've come to realize something important." She took James's hand and Carol's, bringing them together. "True elegance isn't something you wear, it's something you are." The room fell silent except for the soft music playing in the background. Would this moment of dignity be enough to heal yesterday's wound? Or would the sting of humiliation linger despite this grand gesture? James cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Well, I did promise you dinner, Mom, and I believe your friends are looking forward to helping launch this new partnership." As the group prepared to leave for dinner, Eleanor paused beside Alice. "Thank you for your kindness yesterday. Sometimes a small act of decency makes all the difference." Alice smiled. "Actually, Mrs. Thornton, I should thank you. Your son has offered me a position managing Bellamy's community outreach program. It seems I'll be working closely with the nursing home now." Outside, a fleet of black cars waited to transport everyone to dinner. As Eleanor settled into the back seat beside James, she studied her son's profile in the fading light. "You didn't have to do any of this," she said softly. James took her hand, his expression serious. "Do you remember what you used to tell me when kids at school made fun of my second-hand clothes?" Eleanor smiled at the memory. "That what matters isn't what people call you, but what you answer to." "Exactly. And I answer to your son before I answer to CEO." He squeezed her hand. "Those people saw an old woman in a cardigan. They missed seeing the woman who worked 3 jobs after Dad died to keep a roof over our heads, the woman who taught English to immigrants for free on weekends, the woman who never once complained about how unfair life could be." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "I just wanted Carol to have something beautiful for once." "Mum, you've given us everything beautiful already," James said. "Now it's our turn." As they drove through the Chicago twilight toward the restaurant, Eleanor realized something had shifted inside her. The humiliation of yesterday was fading, replaced by a warm certainty that perhaps the greatest gift wasn't the dress or even the grand gesture, but the knowledge that the values she had tried to instill in her children had taken root and flourished. What Eleanor couldn't know as they drove toward the celebration was that this night would mark only the beginning of a remarkable transformation, not just for her family, but for an entire community. The private dining room at Lakeside, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, hummed with conversation and laughter. Eleanor, seated at the head of the table, watched in amazement as her worlds collided harmoniously. Her son, the international businessman, her daughter and son-in-law, her friends from the nursing home, even Samantha and Alice from the boutique, all sharing stories and forming unexpected connections. Mrs. Thornton, Rosa, one of the nursing home residents, leaned in to whisper, "Your son says we'll all be getting new outfits for job interviews." "Is it really true?" Eleanor nodded, still processing the evening's events herself. "It seems so, Rosa. James has always believed in practical solutions." Across the table, James was deep in conversation with Richard about expanding the program to include technology training for seniors. Carol was exchanging contact information with Samantha, discussing how her marketing firm might assist with promoting the initiative. "I never imagined my birthday would turn into all this," Eleanor murmured, more to herself than anyone. "The best celebrations often arise from unexpected circumstances," came a voice beside her. Eleanor turned to find an elderly gentleman in an impeccable suit taking the empty seat to her right. "I don't believe we've met," she said, offering her hand. "I'm Eleanor Thornton." "Harold Bellamy," he replied, his handshake firm despite his advanced years. "I believe you visited my store yesterday." Eleanor's eyes widened. "You're—" "The founder, yes, though my daughter runs the business these days." His eyes, sharp despite his age, held a spark of mischief. "Your son made quite an impression on her this morning. Called me immediately after he left." Eleanor felt her face flush. "Mr. Bellamy, I must apologize for the disruption." He waved away her concern. "Please, it's Harold, and there's no need for apologies. In fact, I should be thanking you. Thanking me, but why?" Harold's expression grew reflective. "When I opened Bellamy's 40 years ago, it was meant to be a place where everyone was treated with dignity. Somewhere along the way, it seems, we forgot that luxury isn't just about price tags. It's about how you make people feel." He patted her hand gently. "Your son reminded us of that. Rather forcefully, I might add." As Eleanor processed his words, James approached their table. His eyebrows rose slightly at the sight of Harold, but he recovered quickly. "I see you've met Mr. Bellamy," he said, placing a protective hand on his mother's shoulder. "Indeed," Harold replied, standing to shake James's hand. "I was just telling your mother how her visit to my store has initiated some long overdue changes." James's expression remained carefully neutral. "I hope those changes include personnel adjustments." Harold nodded. "Vivian has been transferred to our warehouse operations. She'll be learning the business from the ground up. Marcus has chosen to pursue opportunities elsewhere." He turned back to Eleanor. "But more importantly, we're implementing a company-wide retraining on customer service and community engagement. Your experience, unfortunate as it was, has become a watershed moment for Bellamy's." As the evening progressed, Eleanor found herself at the center of a conversation about dignity in aging, a topic she had pondered often but rarely discussed openly. The women from the nursing home shared stories of being dismissed or overlooked because of their age, while the younger people at the table listened with growing awareness. "It's not just about nice clothes," Rosa explained passionately. It's about being seen, really seen. Eleanor nodded. When you reach a certain age, you become almost invisible. People look past you, speak over you, make assumptions about what you can or cannot do. Harold Bellamy cleared his throat. Which is precisely why I'd like to propose something, if I may. He looked directly at Eleanor. Mrs. Thornton, would you consider serving as a consultant for our new initiative? Your perspective would be invaluable. Before Eleanor could respond, James intervened. Mom already volunteers 3 days a week at the nursing home, Mr. Bellamy. I'm not sure she has time to take on additional responsibilities. Eleanor gave her son a look he remembered well from childhood, the one that said she could speak for herself. What sort of consulting did you have in mind, Harold? The conversation that followed laid the groundwork for what would eventually become Dignity by Design, a revolutionary approach to fashion and service for senior citizens. As coffee and dessert were served, Eleanor found herself energized in a way she hadn't felt in years, contributing ideas and insights that were met with genuine interest and respect. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Carol pulled her mother aside. "Mom, I had no idea you were looking at that dress for me. You shouldn't have." Eleanor cupped her daughter's cheek. "I wanted to give you something special. Something that would make you feel as beautiful as I've always seen you." Carol's eyes filled with tears. "But Mom, don't you understand? You already gave me the most valuable thing. You showed me what real dignity looks like. Not by what you wear, but by who you are." As they embraced, Eleanor caught James watching them, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and something deeper. Perhaps a recognition of how close they had come to losing the quiet grace that had shaped their family. The ride home was peaceful, Chicago's lights glittering like earthbound stars as they crossed the river. Eleanor sat between her children in the back of the car, their presence a comfort that transcended words. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and perhaps a new purpose. But for now, this moment of connection was enough. As James helped her from the car in front of her brownstone, Eleanor impulsively reached up to straighten his tie, a mother's gesture that transcended time and circumstance. "Your father would be so proud of the man you've become," she whispered. James blinked rapidly, emotion catching him off guard. "I learned from the best, Mom, both of you." Standing on her modest porch, watching the sleek car disappear into the night, Eleanor felt a surge of something powerful. Not pride exactly, but a profound sense of rightness. The humiliation of yesterday had transformed into something unexpected and beautiful, not because of wealth or power or grand gestures, but because dignity, once recognized, could never truly be taken away. Have you ever witnessed someone being treated poorly based on appearances or experienced it yourself? Take a moment and share your experience in the comments. The days that followed brought a whirlwind of changes to Eleanor's quiet life. The phone rang constantly with calls from Samantha at Bellamy's, Harold checking on the progress of their new initiative, and journalists seeking interviews about the Dignity by Design program that was rapidly gaining attention across Chicago's business community. Eleanor, who had lived most of her life avoiding the spotlight, found herself thrust into it. Camera crews visited the nursing home, capturing footage of the first fitting session where residents were measured for interview attire. Local news featured a piece on Eleanor's volunteer work, highlighting how her decades of quiet service had suddenly intersected with her son's corporate influence to create meaningful change. "I'm not comfortable with all this attention," she confided to James during one of their now regular evening calls. "People are acting as if I did something extraordinary." "You did, Mom," he replied. "You walked into that store with your head held high, even knowing you might not be welcome. That takes a different kind of courage than what I do every day." Eleanor sighed, unconvinced. Speaking of which, shouldn't you be back in Tokyo by now? My company has excellent executives who are handling things, James interrupted. I've decided to open a Chicago office. It's been a long time coming, and this seems like the perfect opportunity. The news sent a thrill of joy through Eleanor, though she tried to temper her reaction. Are you sure that's a wise business decision? James chuckled. Always looking out for me, aren't you? Yes, it's a sound business move. Chicago's tech scene is growing, and we need a stronger Midwest presence. His voice softened. And maybe I've realized some investments are worth more than others. As October gave way to November, the first tangible results of the Dignity by Design initiative emerged. 3 nursing home residents secured part-time positions after interviewing in their new Bellamy's attire. A major department store chain announced it would be following Bellamy's lead with a similar program. Eleanor's calendar filled with meetings where her opinion was not just heard, but actively sought. You're a natural at this, Harold told her, after she led a focus group discussing how retail spaces could be made more accessible and welcoming to older customers. You have a gift for translating experience into insight. Yet despite the external success, Eleanor struggled with an internal conflict. The boutique incident had initiated positive change, yes, but it had come through her son's intervention, his power, his connections, his wealth. Part of her wondered if true dignity could ever come from borrowed influence. This question haunted her as she prepared for the official launch of the Dignity by Design collection, a line of professional and formal wear specifically designed for seniors with both style and practical considerations in mind. The event was to be held at Bellamy's, a full-circle moment that both pleased and discomforted Eleanor. The morning of the launch, Eleanor stood before her closet in indecision. Among her modest wardrobe now hung several elegant new outfits, gifts from Bellamy's, James, and even Carol. But as she considered her options, her eyes kept returning to her familiar beige cardigan. The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. She wrapped her robe tighter and went to answer it, expecting the car James had arranged to take her to the event. Instead, she found Alice standing on her porch, holding a garment bag. "Good morning, Mrs. Thornton," Alice said brightly. "I hope I'm not too early." Eleanor welcomed her in, confused. "I wasn't expecting you, dear. Is everything all right with the launch?" "Everything's perfect," Alice assured her, "but I had an idea I wanted to run by you before the event." She carefully laid the garment bag across Eleanor's sofa and unzipped it to reveal not the navy blue dress Eleanor had admired that fateful day, but something entirely different. It was a suit, elegantly tailored in a soft heather grey with subtle navy pinstripes. The fabric looked luxurious, but not ostentatious. The cut contemporary without being trendy. "We created this based on your feedback about practical elegance," Alice explained. "It's the flagship piece of the collection, and we'd be honored if you'd wear it today." She hesitated, then added, "And we've named it the Eleanor." Eleanor touched the fabric reverently. "It's beautiful, but you're wondering if it represents who you really are," Alice finished for her. "That's actually why I'm here early. I thought you might feel that way." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "This is for you, not from Bellamy's or from the collection, from me." Inside the pouch was a simple silver brooch in the shape of a cardinal, identical to one Eleanor had lost years ago, a gift from Walter on their first anniversary. "James mentioned it was your favorite," Alice explained. "I found a vintage one at an estate sale. I thought maybe it could be your something old to go with the new suit." Eleanor's fingers closed around the brooch, emotion welling up unexpectedly. "This is too much, Alice. You've already done so much. You once told me that sometimes a small act of decency makes all the difference," Alice reminded her gently. "You didn't know it, But the day you came into the store was my first week on the job. I was terrified of Vivian and didn't know how to stand up to her. Watching you walk out with your dignity intact despite how they treated you, it changed something in me." She smiled shyly. "So you see, this isn't charity, it's gratitude." Will Eleanor accept this gift of gratitude and embrace her new role? Or will her inner conflict prevent her from fully stepping into this unexpected chapter of her life? The answer awaits as she stands at the threshold between her past and a future she never imagined. 2 hours later, Eleanor stood at the entrance to Bellamy's, dressed in the elegant grey suit with the cardinal brooch pinned near her heart. The nervous flutter in her stomach reminded her of her first day teaching years ago, that same mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. Inside, the store had been transformed. Gone was the intimidating silence, replaced by the gentle hum of conversation. Displays featured models of various ages, including photographs of several nursing home residents wearing pieces from the new collection. A banner across the back wall proclaimed, "Dignity by design, elegance at every age." James appeared at her side, handsome in a suit that complemented hers. "You look perfect, Mom," he said, offering his arm. "Ready?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "I think so. It's just overwhelming." "If it helps," he said with a grin, "just imagine everyone in their underwear." Eleanor laughed despite herself, grateful for the moment of levity. "Your father used to say the same thing." "I know," James replied softly. "That's where I learned it." As they entered, applause broke out. Eleanor recognized faces from the nursing home, representatives from several major retailers, local media, and in the center, Harold Bellamy standing proudly beside a display featuring the Eleanor suit in several color variations. The launch proceeded like a dream. Eleanor found herself speaking confidently about the importance of designing with dignity in mind. She shared stories from her nursing home volunteers about the impact proper clothing had on their self-perception and how others treated them. She even managed a joke about her initial Bellamy's experience that had the audience laughing with "not at her." "What began as an unfortunate encounter," she concluded, "has blossomed into something remarkable. Not because of recrimination or revenge, but because people of goodwill chose to listen and learn." As the formal presentation ended and guests mingled around displays, sampling champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Eleanor found a quiet moment near the window where her journey had begun. The afternoon sun slanted through the glass, catching the silver threads in the pinstripes of her suit. "You know," Carol said, appearing beside her with 2 flutes of champagne, "when I was little, I used to watch you get dressed for parent-teacher conferences. You always took such care, even though we didn't have much." Eleanor accepted the champagne with a smile. "Your father used to tease me about it. He'd say, 'Ellie, you're just going to get covered in chalk dust and finger paint anyway.' But you told him presentation matters," Carol continued, "that showing respect for yourself helps others respect you too." Eleanor nodded, surprised her daughter remembered. "I did believe that, I still do." "Well," Carol said, raising her glass, "here's to you practicing what you preached all these years." As they clinked glasses, Eleanor caught sight of her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her was changed, not just by the elegant suit or the carefully styled hair, but by something deeper, a certainty, a peace. The knowledge that dignity wasn't given or taken, it was claimed and cultivated from within. The afternoon light began to fade, signaling the end of the successful launch. Guests departed with gift bags containing brochures and sample accessories from the collection. The nursing home residents left wearing new outfits, their postures noticeably straighter, their smiles wider. As staff began the clean-up process, Harold approached Eleanor. I've been in business for over 4 decades, he said, his voice gruff with emotion, and I've never seen a launch generate this kind of response. The press coverage alone. He shook his head in wonder. But more importantly, you've reminded an old man why he got into this business in the first place. Eleanor smiled warmly. Sometimes we all need reminding of our original purpose. Indeed, Harold agreed, which is why I'd like to offer you a permanent position as our Director of Inclusive Design. This initiative is just the beginning. Eleanor, with your guidance, we could revolutionize how the fashion industry approaches aging. The offer stunned her. At 72, Eleanor had assumed her working days were largely behind her, yet here was an opportunity to transform her, life's experiences, even the painful ones, into wisdom that could benefit others. I'll need to think about it, she said carefully. It's a significant change. Harold nodded, understanding. Of course, take all the time you need. Later that evening, a small celebration continued at Eleanor's brownstone. James had arranged for catering, and the modest living room was filled with the people who mattered most. Her children, a few close friends, Alice, and surprisingly, Harold Bellamy himself. As dessert was served, James proposed a toast. To my mother, whose grace under pressure taught me more about true leadership than any business school ever could. Glasses clinked, and Eleanor felt a rush of joy so intense it brought tears to her eyes, not just for the day's success or the unexpected opportunities ahead, but for the fullness of a life lived with integrity, through hardship and happiness alike. When the guests had gone, and only James remained, helping to load the dishwasher in comfortable silence, Eleanor finally gave voice to the question that had been forming all day. Do you think I should take Harold's offer? James considered carefully before answering. That depends. Do you want it for yourself, or do you feel obligated because of everything that's happened? A bit of both, perhaps, Eleanor admitted. I never imagined having a career at my age, but there's something appealing about the idea that my experiences might help others. James closed the dishwasher and turned to face her. When Dad died, you told me something I've never forgotten. You said that sometimes life presents us with doors we never expected to find, and our only choice is whether to walk through them or stay where we are. Eleanor remembered those dark days after Walter's death, the crushing grief, the overwhelming responsibility, the terrifying uncertainty. Yet somehow they had survived, more than survived. They had thrived. Whatever you decide, James continued, know that you've already succeeded where it matters most. You've lived with dignity, taught dignity, and now inspired dignity in others. He embraced her gently. That's a legacy most people can only dream of. That night, after James had gone to his hotel with promises to return for breakfast, Eleanor sat in her favorite chair by the window. The cardinal brooch caught the lamplight as she unpinned it from her suit jacket, its silver wings gleaming. "What would you think of all this, Walter?" she whispered to the quiet room. "You're practical Ellie, becoming a fashion consultant at 72. She could almost hear his warm laugh, see the crinkles around his eyes. "I'd think you were finally getting the recognition you always deserved," his memory seemed to answer. Eleanor smiled, tracing the outline of the cardinal with her fingertip. The path ahead wasn't clear yet, but the fear and uncertainty had been replaced by something stronger, a sense of purpose renewed, whether she took Harold's offer or found another way to share her wisdom. She knew now that her voice mattered. Her experience mattered. She mattered. The navy blue dress that had started it all would hang in Carol's closet now, a gift not just of fabric and thread, but of the story woven around it. A story of humiliation transformed into honor, of invisibility giving way to influence, of quiet dignity finding its voice at last. As moonlight spilled through the window, casting silver patterns across the room, Eleanor made her decision. Tomorrow would bring a new chapter, one she would write herself, with clarity and confidence. The boutique incident had been merely the opening scene of a much larger story, one where age became an asset, experience a currency more valuable than youth, and dignity the greatest luxury of all. Congratulations, type 9 in the comments. So that I know you stayed until the end with me, thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.